thank you everybody who's joined us. We have two really great alums, both of whom I, spent some time with back in the day. So I'm very excited to welcome Caitlin and Mary. And Caitlin's going to present first, and go ahead.
Okay, so hi everyone. I'm Caitlin Piccirillo-Stosser. I am an OHS grad, class of 2014. I'm really excited to be with you guys here today. This is my first alumni week, alumni day, because I'm down here in Florida, Jacksonville, Florida. So if it wasn't virtual, I wouldn't be able to be there, but I'm really excited to be able to do it virtually. And hopefully in the future, I'll be able to come in person. So there's a few of the things that I'm involved in, or I was involved in, I should say. I was also in band, marching band, and that picture there is actually on the Wikipedia page for OHS, if you didn't know that. And I happened to be in the picture, which I was not the person to find that. Unfortunately, it was several of my other friends in college and at work, and they have just made a little bit of fun of me for it with those outfits that hopefully by this point have been updated, but I'm not sure if they have. I was also in Irish step dancing. That's a wig. That's not my hair. But the costume is very much a costume, and those socks are glued to my legs. But suffice to say, I was involved in quite a few things in high school, on top of the AP classes that I was taking, one of which I took with Miss Olin, BC Calc. She sat behind me in class, and it was a great experience. She definitely helped teach me, and we suffered through it together. But on the page, I have a few things that I took away from high school: time management, perseverance, and community. And those are the three things that I'm going to allude to throughout the presentation that I think were really important skills and lessons that I had learned in high school that I've been able to apply through college and in my career to date. So let's see, did my slide switch? Okay. So I went to UChicago. I graduated class of 2018. And when I first got to college, I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do. When I had applied to schools, actually, I had applied for engineering programs until I realized that I was basically going to be taking math and science classes for the next 4 years. And I had just come from my AP Lit class with Miss Hanrahan, and it was a lot of fun sitting around talking about books. And I wasn't really willing to give that up. So I ended up choosing UChicago, which had one engineering major and was barely an engineering major. So I ended up going the liberal arts route. I double majored in econ and public policy studies, mostly because I thought that it would give me a really flexible, balanced, and strong analytical foundation that I would be able to apply kind of throughout any kind of career that I decided to pursue. There were a lot of really challenging classes. That's where that perseverance came in. A lot of classes that I am so glad that I will never ever have to take again. And that time management definitely came into play a lot. There were a lot of nights that I think if I hadn't had to balance science research and AP classes and extracurriculars in high school, that I would have been up all night long. But since I had learned how to time manage pretty well, I was able to, go to bed at 11 o'clock and, get back up really early in the morning, but I did end up sleeping that night. The other thing that I wanted to talk about for college was that I didn't jump right into a whole bunch of different clubs when I started. I knew that I had probably taken on a little bit too much in high school, so I wanted to focus on just a few things that I really cared about in college, and focus more on the academics, as well as just finding that community too. So I was in Art Should, which was an after-school art program where I volunteered at a local Chicago public school close to the campus. Then I was also involved in the Environment, Agriculture, and Food Working Group, which was like a research-based program that we put on a lot of events around sustainability, focused on Chicago and on campus as well. The last thing for college I want to talk about was when senior year came around, I still wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. So if you get to college one day and you still don't know what you want to do 4 years later, that's okay. You don't have to know what you want to do for the rest of your life when you're 22 or 21 years old. I recruited for consulting in the fall pretty half-heartedly because I didn't really want to be, or I should say I knew very certainly that I didn't want to just be at work for 100 hours a week. I wanted to have that balance of work and life, which I think I have on the slide, yep. And I wanted that community too. I wanted to be able to find a really good culture of people who I enjoyed working with, like I had in science research and like I had in my other clubs in high school, and that I had found in college too. So that was something that I really wanted to make sure I had in a career. And so I ended up moving down to Jacksonville, Florida, where I never thought I would have ever gone. But I became part of the leadership development program at the Home Depot Pro division. So it's the business to business arm of the Home Depot. Rather than focusing on stores, we focus on the professionals. So we service apartment buildings, we service hospitals and airports, more of that professional type customer rather than just anyone who might walk into a Home Depot store. And what they had to offer me was a rotational program where I would really be able to learn and also make an impact. So I would be able to rotate in different departments in the company, really gain a lot of exposure to leadership and different groups of people, while also, making a significant analytical impact. So my first 6 months, I was in merchandising. So I supported the merchants who are responsible for deciding what we buy from our vendors and sell to our customers. Worked on a number of different projects with them, but at the end of my 6 months, I ended up joining the merchandising finance team. Like numbers a little bit too much, maybe. Just kidding, Miss Olin, I love numbers. But I became a financial analyst, and back in January, I was promoted to senior financial analyst. But most of my roles and responsibilities have stayed the same. I do a lot of financial planning. So for the 230 product categories that we have, I decide basically what we should be doing in terms of our sales and margins. It ends up impacting our merchants' compensation. So it can be a little bit of pressure, and there's a lot of discussions around it. So it's not just me making those decisions, thankfully. But I also just support our merchandising team and our other business partners with a lot of reporting. Do I HD stock? I do have, yes, I do have our employee stock purchase program. So yes, I did do that, and definitely recommend if anyone ever works for a company where stock is offered, definitely do it because you can get it at a discount. Very nice little perk. However, Mr. Jaffes, I will be actually leaving the company in June. I have been doing a lot of thinking throughout the pandemic and thinking about what I want to do with my life again. And I decided that this is not for me long term, at least that's what I think right now. So I'll be going to the Yale School of Management in the fall. I will be moving back up north and getting my MBA. So I'll be class of 2023, which is exciting. And a few reasons why I chose Yale that I put on the page. Location, definitely want to be closer to my family. It's been 7 years away, and it'll be nice to get back. Some of you may or may not know that I am related to someone at the school. And I know that he misses me so dearly, so I need to get back close to to home. Just kidding. It's very much my decision. But there's that same thing again, community. I recognized that Yale had a really strong sense of community, and I wanted to be back there, or not back there, but go there to to have a really good group of people who I could be around while I pursue my MBA. And the last one is a little bit, or more than a little bit, connected to what I want to do or what I think I want to do. And that's that Yale's mission is to educate leaders for business and society, not just to go out there and make a lot of money with an MBA, but actually to do things where your actions will have a positive impact on other people. And I'm looking to get into education sector. I'm thinking about ed tech, so things like Google for Education or Kahoot or Duolingo counts as ed tech too. So I'm not 100% certain that's what I want to do, but that's what I'm going in thinking about. Hoping to stay in the Northeast long term, but in general, just really trying to think about how what I am doing is very intentional and having an impact on others, because I know that my skills could be used in a lot of different ways, but I think that that's where it comes down to me really feeling good about what I'm doing. And I always really enjoyed working with kids. I currently volunteer at an after school reading program. And I think that education is something that I'm really passionate about. All you teachers on call and students, yay. So that's what I'm thinking about right now. But I guess moral of my presentation is you have plenty of opportunities throughout your high school, college career to evaluate what you're doing. And a lot of what I do is really based off of what I think will make me happy. And I think that's a really good way to go about life, just trying to optimize for your happiness and how you can help others as well. But never feel like you're stuck in one spot. There's always opportunities to change, to make yourself, do what you want to do. So, and that's it for me. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to reach out. I put my email on the page and I'll put it in the chat too.
And maybe what we can do also
Yeah.
is we can just circle back, and anybody who has questions that want to ask them directly, we'll give Mary a chance to present, and then any questions, you can stay on, right, Caitlin?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be on. Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. So anybody who wants to contact Caitlin should definitely jot down that information there to contact.
I'll put it in the chat too. Let me see if
yeah,
and there we go.
I'd like to now also thank Caitlin, but let's introduce Mary, and she's going to talk a little bit about what she's been up to as well, and then we'll hopefully have some time for
nudge. So my name is Mary Falcigno. I graduated from OHS in 2011, so a full decade ago at this point, which is crazy to say. And I'm kind of just going to give you a breakdown of how my education continued and is continuing, as well as what I'm doing now in terms of work and career development. So here's just a brief breakdown of my education thus far. Like I said, I graduated from high school in 2011, and I went to St. Michael's College, which is a small liberal arts school up in Vermont. And I majored in mathematics, so yay math. And I ended up minoring in computer science, which is something that I didn't even know I would be interested in. But through the math program at my school, we were required to do a computer science class, and I kind of fell in love with it. It was like problem solving, but with words on a screen to make something do more or less whatever you want. And so I ended up grabbing a computer science minor while I was in college. And more recently, I actually enrolled part-time at the New Jersey Institute of Technology, NJIT, to get my master's in data science, focusing on a computational track. And I'll talk more about how that ties into what I do for work down the line. So first, I wanted to talk about college because a lot of what I did and what I learned while I was in high school ended up carrying over into my college life. I have always loved math, which I know makes me sound like a crazy person. Most people shudder at the thought of doing math, but I had wonderful teachers in both my middle school as well as in high school. And I ended up deciding, you know what, math is what I want to study in college. I had no idea what I was going to do with math, but I knew I wanted to study it. So when I enrolled in college, I enrolled as a math major. And one of the great things that I got to do was summer research opportunities. My college offered the chance for students to work with professors to help them with their research that they've been doing. And so what you see on the screen here, this like snowman looking item, as well as this mess of cubes here, those are built out of more almost like Connects. They're called Zome tools. And for 2 summers between my freshman and sophomore, and then between my sophomore and junior year, I got to work with a math professor and a computer science professor studying DNA nanostructures, which sounds like it should be a biology study, but they were using a field of math called graph theory in order to figure out how to build these nanostructures out of DNA. And so for 2 summers, I got to work very closely with these two professors, as well as other math and computer science majors. And it was a lot of fun. I got to learn a whole lot of new things, and we even got to publish a couple papers as a group. So that was great. I got inducted into a mathematical honor society called Pi Mu Epsilon, along with other science majors. Most of them are math majors, but there were a couple engineering majors, computer science majors. Clearly, as you could tell by my brilliant display of graphical design, I excelled in digital art using Java, but designing websites using HTML and CSS, two of the major website programming languages, was something that I learned in college and that I had a lot of fun with. Constantly tweaking your code to make everything flow nicely and creating a user experience for whoever's going to be going onto your website or using your application was a lot of fun. And then, like we were talking about just before the class began, I played clarinet all through high school. I was in wind ensemble, I did concert band, I did marching band and jazz band. I played saxophone for jazz band. And then in college, I continued playing band. I don't have any pictures of the concert band, but I also played with the liturgical ensemble. So my school was a Catholic school, but they, rather than just a choir and a piano, they had an entire band at every mass. They had trombones, trumpets, clarinet, flute, violin, drum set, like the whole nine. So I was fortunate enough to be able to join and play with them. So that's kind of a breakdown of college. And moving out of college, I wanted to start working right away. I was interested in making an income. I wanted to start my career. And so I started working at Picatinny Arsenal, which is an Army base that is in Northwest New Jersey. So I'm actually not too far from home. It's about just over an hour drive to get back to Ossining from here. And I started in October of 2015. So I graduated May 2015, started working here October of 2015. And it's been now over 5.5 years. And my work has definitely evolved from when I started to what I'm doing now, which is one thing that I found very exciting, but also a little bit stressful because what I was hired for has definitely changed to what I'm doing right now. But the chance to do sort of what they call developmental assignments or rotational assignments was a great benefit because I got to experience other departments. I've been able to learn about different areas of work within the Army, and I've been able to meet people and network within the post. And so if I ever wanted to try something different, I would have that option, which is great networking I know talking to people, especially nowadays, is not easy and it can be kind of awkward, but networking is such a great tool to have. Being able to get to know others and make those connections not only is great like for making friends, which is very different outside of school. You don't have classes that you're going to every day to see people, but it's also great for career development. You learn new things, you get those different perspectives. So, in the beginning of my work, I was working on looking at things called industrial control systems or ICSs, and we were programming with Arduinos, which are the little boards that you see here, and Raspberry Pis, which are not pictured. And we were figuring out how to make devices to interrupt these industrial control systems and do things like disrupt a water supply, shut off electricity for X amount of time. Um, and what we did was I learned how to solder, which is something I never thought I would do. I learned about breadboards and building circuits. And like what you have here is a GPS camera. So you have a small camera here and then a GPS device here. And you're able to imagine kind of like slapping that onto uh, a device that you need to keep track of, you don't want to lose. You slap it on there and you can track where it is and see where it is through the camera. So this is what I worked on for about 2 years. And I went to workshops. I learned about cybersecurity, which obviously, as the world is becoming more connected over the internet, cybersecurity is extremely important in order to ensure nobody's stealing passwords, nobody is taking your name and identity from whatever accounts you have online. So we learned a lot about cybersecurity through this project. But one aspect of work that you can't prepare for really is getting funding for these projects. So as a brand new worker at Picatinny, I was just like, oh, tell me what to do. And then eventually they're like, so we don't have money for this. So you got to find something else to do. So I'm like, awesome, great. And so I eventually found data analytics, which brings me to what I've been up to lately, which is a data science based project looking at ammunition data. So I work for the Army. One large aspect of the Army is ammunition logistics. Where is the ammo? How is it moving? And is it moving safely and on time? And so the project, I've been working a project looking at all that data, historical data and current data, and figuring out ways to make smart systems that can do things like predicting, do things like forecasting how much ammo will be available, etc. And so you see here, like these little tables and stuff, they're just using Excel, but Excel gets used a lot in most work. I feel like Caitlin can probably attest to Excel is probably a tool that she also is quite familiar with, but we use Excel frequently in order to perform data analytics, as well as tools such as MATLAB or JUMP to perform analysis on these mass tables of data that we get. Another aspect and a bit of a more fun aspect of work that I get to do is mixed and augmented reality development. So this very fun picture in the upper left is me wearing something called a HoloLens, which is a Microsoft headset that allows you to interact with virtual models in your real space. I'm sure many of you are familiar with things like the Oculus Rift or other virtual reality headsets. With those, they block out all view of the world around you and you only see virtual world. What I get to work with is it allows you to see everything around you in addition to virtual objects. So I have that, and then I have the most recent model of the HoloLens that I can show at the end of all this. But I've also, like many with the pandemic, I started working from home, and I have not been in the office since March 16th of last year, which is crazy. But I was posted up, as you see here, in my living room on a fold out table, just wheeling my office chair back and forth between my desk and that fold out table because the monitor that I used for work was too big for my desk. So I've been invading my apartment's living room for the past year, and it's definitely been an adjustment. I haven't been able to do the augmented reality development testing as I normally would because, as you can see, my living room's not the biggest. And so trying to run a model that is 20 feet long in an 11-foot long living room doesn't quite work out. Like those numbers don't match. So it has been a challenge, but I am fortunate that the work that I do in general is on a computer, so I can bring it home with me very easily. And then kind of the the last bit is just talking about some of the fun opportunities that I get at work. Like I said, networking is very important, and being able to meet people throughout wherever you work, no matter how big your workplace is, will ultimately benefit you. So I've had a chance to participate in more or less like science fairs, but adult science fairs. In the upper left, there's an event called Introduce a Girl to Engineering, where high school students from local high schools come and you get to show them the different work that you do at Picatinny. So I'm showing the HoloLens and how to operate it, and I get to have all of the students try it out and interact with some fun virtual tools that we've developed. I've also been able to present at the Liberty Science Center in Jersey City, showing haptic feedback devices. So if you're in a virtual world and you go to touch, let's say, a box, you're obviously not going to feel anything because it's not actually there. But with haptic feedback, it sends ultrasonic waves to your hand. So when you go to touch something, you get that feedback to your hand, being like, "Oh, you're hitting something now," and it creates a more immersive experience. And then I'm also part of an organization called Women in Defense, and I kind of fell into this board accidentally. I was brought on because a coworker knew that I liked web development and I liked designing websites. And our chapter of Women in Defense needed help with their website. And so I was recommended. I met with the president at the time, and I helped them get their website up and running, and I helped them organize ticket sales for a large event that they had. And after that, they're like, "So do you want to be our webmaster, our social media person?" I was like, "Sure, why not?" So for the past about 2 years, I've been working with this wonderful group of women, and we've experienced some troubles, both due to COVID and general membership issues. But it was great. I got to meet several different people, both from Picatinny and from outside of Picatinny. And that's been a lot of fun. And I'm truly just a band geek at heart. I love playing the clarinet. And when I found out that there was a band on post, I immediately emailed the organizer and was like, "I want to join." And so I was fortunate enough to be able to join. They're called the Powder Kegs, the Picatinny Powder Kegs. And we've been able to play at different ceremonies. We've been able to hold concerts in our dining hall at work. And we play at our community day, which is sort of like a fair outside with food trucks and activities for kids to come and do. And that's been a whole lot of fun. And then the
Mary,
last, yes.
you've got a question in the chat, which I
Okay.
can you get to the chat, or do you want me to read it?
If you don't mind reading it out to me, that would be
Okay.
great.
Did you use neural networks, and are they commonly used for data prediction, or is it more common to use other ML algorithms such as a random forest or regression?
That's a great question. So we do We do touch upon neural networks sometimes, but I would say that so neural networks we classify as deep learning. We do touch upon deep learning sometimes, but in general, we stick to the more broad machine learning, which is, like you said, the random forests or the classifiers, bubble classification, and stuff like that. At least for what I do, there's not really a need for a neural network. It would just be more computing power than necessary. But for more of the imaging, computer vision, things like identifying a gun in a whole crowd of people, then neural networks tend to be used.
Okay, got another question. Previously,
Go
you
for it.
mentioned HTML and Java. What is
Yes.
something you can do to start learning how to program?
The internet is a very powerful resource. There are plenty of websites out there that teach you the basic syntax, so how to just write these programs. So I was using W3 School to learn the basics of C Sharp, which is again just another programming language. Um, but also YouTube. YouTube has a lot of videos or even college lectures that break down how to do programming. So I would say those two. I believe there's another online resource. Not Audacity. Hold on, give me a moment. Um, when I think of the other online place, they have classes for almost anything. I believe a lot of them are pay. You have to pay for them, but they are more in depth and are really good at breaking down the language for you. But if you're just starting, W3 Schools is a great resource.
Okay, we only have about 5 or 6 more minutes, but another question that just came in.
Okay.
How many programming languages do you know?
I began with Java, and then for websites, there's several different ones depending on what you're trying to do. So HTML, CSS. There's also JavaScript, XML, and PHP, but those are kind of for the back end part of making a website work. Then for work, I ended up learning Python as well as C Sharp. C Sharp is used for the HoloLens development. Python is used for the machine learning development. If you're going to do machine learning, Python is a big one. Uh, so yeah, those are the languages currently under my belt.
Okay, so everybody who's joined the meet, we only have about a little less than 5 minutes left. So here's the contact information Mary is sharing. If anybody has questions for either Caitlin or Mary, now is a great time to ask. Feel free to unmute and ask them yourself. Otherwise, you can put them in the chat. You can reach out directly to them as well. There's another one that just came in. Caitlin, what are your goals for future career in education?
That's a good question. Thanks, Mr. Yonkler. I'm still definitely trying to figure that out. I'm hoping to figure that out a little bit more while in school. But mostly I'm hoping there's a few different problems in education that I would like to address. And one is being able to really identify ways to reduce the inequities in education and provide differentiated learning opportunities to students, since I know that a lot of different students learn at different levels, and it would be really great to be able to provide individuals and students with the resources that they need at the level that they're learning. So if I was to go into ed tech, I think there would be a lot of opportunity for that there. But that's one thing that I'm looking at right now.
Okay, and then there's a great question in here from Miss Budick, and she has ninth graders with her, and she wants just either of you, whatever advice you have to them, what could you give them in terms of as they move through their OHS journey? We just have about 2 minutes left, so
Okay.
if anybody wants to answer that, that would be great.
Do you want to start, Caitlin? Okay, so I would say in high school, everything feels like it is your life. You're stuck here. There's nothing past it. There's so much that'll go on when you get into college. And then once you leave college, there's going to be so much that goes on once you get out of college also. So taking it sounds so cheesy, taking it day by day. Don't stress too hard if you think that things are going to be too difficult this semester or even this week or even today. But if you take it day by day and just focus on, like Caitlin was saying with herself, doing things to make you happy will ultimately be the best, will give you the best results for your career down the line.
I 100% agree. And I see that Miss Sue who put in a question too, so I guess I'll answer that one really quickly. Biggest achievement so far. I think this is going to sound really cheesy, but being able to work through this pandemic and also apply to grad schools through the pandemic virtually has been a challenge, but it also gave me a lot of freedom to work on things that I might not have been able to if I was at the office, taking advantage of working from home. But I think, yeah, I'm really, really excited to be able to go to Yale. So I would say that might be my biggest achievement so far.
So we're pretty much out of time. There's lots of movement around me, but I wanted to personally thank you so much for both for joining, and it was really wonderful seeing both of you. And I hope, as you said, Caitlin, earlier, that I hope there will be a time when you will be able to come back into the building and we will be able to hug each other and say hello. Look forward to that. And again, I know that we ran out of time for questions. So if anybody has any questions, please reach out. Both Mary and Caitlin have given you their contact information, and I know they both would be more than happy to help guide you through your time here and as you leave and enter the college world. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. And thank you to Mr. Jaffis and Mr. Yonkler for organizing.